Animorphs number 8, The Alien, by K.A. Applegate. Prologue. Before Earth. Prepare for return to normal space, Captain Narrated said in thought speak. I was on the bridge of our dome ship. It was an amazing moment. I had never been on the bridge before. I'd always been stuck in my quarters or up in the dome. It was an honor to be on the battle bridge with the full warriors, the princes, and the captain himself. It was because I was Elfangor's little brother. An heiress, like me, a warrior cadet, wouldn't have been on the bridge otherwise. Especially not an heiress who had once run into Captain Narrated so hard he'd fallen over and ended up bruising one of his eye stalks. It was an accident, but still, it's just not a good idea for lowly cadets to go plowing into great heroes. But everyone loved Elfangor, so they had to tolerate me. That's the story of my life. If I live 200 years, I'll probably still be known as Elfangor's little brother. We came out of Z-space, or zero space, a realm of white emptiness, and back into normal space. Through the monitors, I saw nothing but blackness dotted with stars. And there, just ahead of us, no more than 500,000 miles away, was a small, mostly blue planet. Is that Earth? I asked Elfangor. I didn't realize there was so much water. Can you get old Hoofentail to let me go down to the planet with you? Aximili, shut up! Elfangor said quickly. He looked slightly sick and cast a dubious glance at Captain Narrated. I guess I had been thought-speaking a little loudly. Elfangor was worried that the War Prince Narrated might have overheard. But I was sure I hadn't been that loud. I mean, I really didn't think that. Old Hoofentail, eh? Captain Narrated said. Is that what they call me? Elfangor shot me a poisonous look. I'm sure this heiress didn't mean any disrespect. I think my brother would have liked to throw me out of the nearest airlock right at that moment. Slowly, Narrated turned his two main eyes toward me. He was a frightening old Andalite, a great warrior, a great hero, Elfangor's idol. Ah, it's the ruffian, the wild brat who knocked me over, he nodded. Old Hoofentail, is it? Well, I kind of like the name. He slowly winked one eye at Elfangor. I suppose we'll have to let the ruffian live. Suddenly, Yerks! We have a Yerk mothership in orbit over the planet, the warrior at the station center cried. They're launching fighters. I count 12 bug fighters, another warrior cried. They're on an intercept course. We'll be firing range within 12 Earth minutes. Captain Narrated turned his face and main eyes toward my brother, while his stalk eyes kept watch on the monitors. The humor was gone from his face. Prince Elfangor, it is time. Launch all fighters. But Elfangor hadn't waited for orders. He was already halfway out the door. My tail banged into the doorway as I plowed after him. Get to the dome, Aximili, Elfangor said. But I don't want to fight, I said. I can fly a fighter as well as... Do not argue with me, Aximili. Heirs do not go into battle. You are not a full warrior yet. Go to the dome. You will be safer there. I don't want to be safe, I said. But a warrior, even a warrior cadet, has to obey orders. Elfangor was my brother. He was also my prince. I could hear the thought-speak announcements coming from the bridge. Yerk bug fighters closing fast. We are entering the outer gravitational field of the planet. Elfangor and I came to a pair of drop shafts. Warriors were zooming down, heading for the fighter bays. I would have to go up to reach the dome. The upward drop shaft was empty. It made me angry. Everyone was fighting but me. When it was all over, Elfangor would be even more of a big hero, and I would still be the little brother, the child. Elfangor hesitated for just a moment before rushing on. He arched his tail forward. I reached forward with my own tail, arching it up over my back. We touched tail blades. You'll have your chance to fight, Aximili, my brother said. Very soon, your fighter will fly side by side with mine. But not in this battle. Yes, my prince, I said, sounding very stiff and formal. But as he turned to enter the drop shaft, I couldn't let him go, thinking I was mad at him. I said, "Hey, Alfangor, go burn some slugs." "That's the plan, little brother," he said with a laugh. "That is the plan." It was the last I saw of him. He disappeared down the drop shaft. I went upward to the great dome. The dome was the heart of our ship. It was a vast, round, open plain of grass and trees and running water from our home planet, all covered by a transparent dome. I was alone there, the only non-warrior on the great ship, the only one without a battle to fight. I could see the blue planet above me, hanging in the black sky. It had a moon, just a dead ball of dust, but the planet looked alive. I could see white clouds swirling. Its yellow sun's light sparkled off the vast oceans. The planet was known to be inhabited by a reasonably intelligent species. We learned a little about them in school. My main eyes were drawn to the brilliant flares of engine exhaust as our fighters lanced toward the onrushing Yeerks. I was far from the battle bridge now, beyond the range of their thought speak. I heard nothing in my head, and my ears heard only the sound of a gentle artificial breeze ruffling the leaves of the trees. I stood on blue-green grass and watched tiny pinpoints of light as the battle was joined in orbit above the blue planet. And then I felt it. A tremor that rolled through my mind, a wave of coldness, a premonition, like a waking nightmare. I turned my stalk eyes away from the battle, toward the dead moon of the blue planet. And there I saw it, a black shape against the gray-white light of the moon. A shape like some twisted battle axe. "Blade ship," I whispered. "A Visser's blade ship." Our fighters were all away. Our dome ship had massive weapons, but the blade ship was fast and maneuverable. Too fast. The warriors on the battle bridge had no choice. They had to separate the dome in order to be able to fight. I felt a grinding, crunching sensation as the dome was released to drift free of the main line of the ship. Then, silence as the dome floated free. Slowly, the rest of my ship rotated into sight. Without the dome, it looked like a long stick, with a huge bulge of engines on the far end, and the smaller bulge of the battle bridge in the middle. They were trying to turn to meet the blade ship. Too slow. The blade ship fired. "No!" Draken beams, bright as the sun, lanced through space. The ship fired again. An explosion of light. A silent explosion like a small sun going nova. The ship, my ship, blew up into separate atoms. One huge flash of light and 100 Andalite warriors died. Woomph! The shock wave hit the dome. It was translated into sound. The grass beneath my hooves slammed up at me. A terrible rattling, shaking, heaving. Ah! My knees buckled as I fell into the grass. Everything was spinning, wildly, out of control. I could feel the artificial gravity weaken. The stabilizers had failed. The dome ship was falling out of orbit. The dome slid down the gravity well, down toward the blue planet. Red-hot glowing atmosphere turned the sky above me into fire. Emergency engines kicked in with a loud whoosh, but they could only slow the descent, not stop it. The dome hurtled at shocking speed down and down and down through the atmosphere, down toward the sparkling sea. Croosh! The dome hit water. Boiling, steaming water rushed over the dome. I was sinking beneath the ocean of the blue planet. I was powerless, terrified, alone. After an eternity, the dome crunched heavily onto the ocean floor. Looking up, I could barely see the surface of the water 100 feet or more above the top of the dome. I climbed shakily to my 4 hoofs. I was standing on a vast, open plain that was a piece of my own planet. A blue-green park hidden deep beneath an alien sea. And there I waited for weeks. I sent out thought-speak cries to my brother. I knew he would save me, if he still lived. But in the end, it was not Alfangor who found me. It was 5 creatures from the planet. 5 humans, as they call themselves. They were the ones who told me of Alfangor's last minutes of life. He had broken Andalite law and custom by giving these humans the power to morph. I was shocked, but tried to hide it. And they had witnessed Alfangor's death, his cold-blooded murder by the Yeerk overlord, Visser III. Visser III, who slaughtered my helpless, wounded brother. Visser III, the only Yeerk to ever infest and control an Andalite body. Visser III, known to all Andalites as the Abomination, the only Andalite controller. He had killed Alfangor, and I had inherited a terrible burden. By Andalite custom, I would be required to avenge my brother's death. Someday, I would have to kill Visser III. Chapter 1. Earth. The first thing an Andalite may notice about humans is that they walk around on only 2 legs. It is very strange to see so many creatures balancing that way. But despite this, they seldom fall over. From the Earth Diary of Aximili Escaruth Ithil. My full name is Aximili Escaruth Ithil. My human friends call me Ax. I am a young Andalite. I have 4 legs. I also have 2 arms, and I have a tail. I am told that I look like a cross between a deer, a scorpion, and a human. I've seen deer in the woods, and I don't agree. For one thing, they have mouths, and I don't. And they only have 2 eyes, while I have 4. As for scorpions, I've only seen pictures. There is some resemblance when it comes to the tail. An Andalite tail is also curved upward and tipped by a very sharp blade. As an Andalite, I have the power to morph. It's not something we're born with, it's a technology. But we invented it, and we are the only race in the galaxy that has it. Except for my human friends, that is. They can morph too, but it's thanks to Andalite science. And thanks to the fact that my brother broke our own laws to give them this power. The one great problem with morphing is the time limit, 2 Earth hours. That time limit was the problem as my human friends and I set about in our particular mission. It was a mission that required careful planning and careful timing. It was a mission full of risk. We were going to a movie. So here's the deal, Ax, Marco explained. You can watch the first hour of the movie, but that's it. We can get you to the mall theater and you watch for an hour, and then we have to get you back to the woods to demorph. A movie. Movies are an important part of human culture. I had decided if I was stuck on Earth among these aliens, that I should at least learn about them. Maybe I would never be the big hero Alfangor was, but I could surely become the biggest expert on humans. Of course, I would have to attend the movie and morph. I couldn't go around in public in my own Andalite form. Humans would have been terrified, and the controllers, those humans who are infested by Yeerk parasites, would have tried to kill me. Which would have ruined the entire movie experience. I would have to morph, to take on a different body. But this particular morph was one I had done several times before. I didn't expect there to be any problems. We were standing together under the camouflage of the forest where I now live. Prince Jake, Marco, Cassie, Rachel, and Tobias were all there. Although Tobias was some distance away. Okay, let's do this, Jake said, making sounds with his mouth to form words. He glanced at his watch. Rachel, you have the backup plan ready? Where does Ax go if he needs an emergency demorph? The dressing room at Nordstrom's. They're big and private. Best dressing rooms in the mall. Cassie and I will be posted outside the theater, ready to rush him there if there's an emergency situation. And Rachel promises not to stop and shop at Junior Miss on the way, Cassie said, grinning. Jake glanced up to the sky. Up above the treetops, a red-tailed hawk floated on a warm breeze. Tobias, Jake yelled. All clear, Tobias called down in thought-speak. I don't see anyone. Tobias is a Nothlit, a person trapped in a morph. It is what happens if you stay beyond the 2-hour limit. Tobias is a human, but his body is that of a hawk. He has adjusted well to his bizarre new life. He lives in the forest with me. For a long time, I expected Tobias to ask me the question that must have haunted him day and night. Whether it be possible for him to escape his hawk body. But he never did. I guess he was afraid of the answer, so I didn't volunteer one. "Okay," Jake said. "Let's do it." I began to morph. The first thing I felt was a slipping, melting, almost sickening feeling, and my internal organs began to shift around. There was a scary little jolt as my second and third heart stopped beating. I heard a grinding sound from inside my body as my spine began to shorten. Soon I was in danger of falling on my face as my front legs shriveled. My arms grew thicker and stronger, but 2 fingers on each hand melted together to leave me with 5-fingered hands. My shoulders grew wider to support my large arms, and my hind legs grew sturdier as more of my weight was shifted onto them. The stalks on my head began to retract, and as they did, my stalk eyes grew dimmer and dimmer, like someone turning off the light. Suddenly, they were gone, and I had only 2 eyes. I dislike that. Having just 2 eyes is so limiting. You can only look in one direction at a time. You can't even look behind you. My spine continued to shorten. In fact, it stuck completely out of my tail, which left my tail as limp as a rope. And then the weak remnants of my tail simply withered away. "Grab him, he's going to fall over," Prince Jake said. He and Marco each took hold of me and kept me upright as my front legs disappeared altogether. Hey, clothing," Rachel said, making a face. "Clothing, don't forget the morphing suit, Axe." As my body continued to change, my skin-tight morphing suit also appeared. It is a very difficult trick to be able to morph clothing, and all you can manage is something extremely tight. "Are you done?" Prince Jake asked me. I considered. I was standing precariously on 2 legs. I possessed 2 strong arms and 10 strong fingers. I was mostly without fur. My eyes were weak and totally unable to see anything except what was right in front of me. My hearing was good. My mind was functioning normally. And I had a mouth. "Yes," I said, using my mouth. Yes. Yes. I am in human morph." I had morphed into a human. The DNA came from samples I had long since acquired from Jake, Cassie, Rachel, and Marco. I would have liked to have Tobias' DNA, but that was not possible since he is an offlet. My human friends have some differences, but each has only 2 legs, 2 arms, and 2 eyes. They each have 1 mouth. Prince Jake is large and pale in color, with brown hair. Cassie is shorter and darker in color, with darker brown hair. Marco is also shorter and medium color, with long brown hair. Rachel is taller and pale and has yellow hair. None of them have any sort of tail. "Ugh, this always makes my skin crawl," Marco said, staring at me in a sideways fashion. "It's like the 4 of us were run through a blender. I swear he has my eyes. What's gross is I'll look at him and think, wow, that guy is cute," Rachel said. "Then I'll see something that looks like Cassie, or worse, like me." "What? Rachel in love with her own looks?" Marco said, using an inflection of his mouth sounds that humans call sarcasm. Then he looked troubled. "I'm still not sure this is a good idea. The controllers could..." Prince Jake interrupted. "We're not talking about controllers, Yurks, or Visser 3. We are taking a break. We fought one battle after another. We destroyed the Kandrona. We beat that Valik monster of theirs. And now we are taking some well-deserved vacation time. Axe wants to learn more about humans, so that's what we're doing." I was never exactly a great student, but I could just imagine how my fellow Andalites would act when they finally rescued me. They'd ask, "So, Aximili, what did you learn about Earth?" And I'd have to say, well, not much." The trick would be to learn about the humans without letting them learn too much about Andalites. There were things I could never tell the humans, things that might make them turn against me. "We should hit the Yurks again while they're weak," Rachel growled. "You know, the Yurks won't get a new ground-based Kandrona for another week. They must still be starving for lack of chondrona rays. We should hit them. Yeerks are a race of parasitic slugs. They live inside the brain of other species. They completely dominate the host body, making it a controller. There are Hork-Bajir controllers, Taxon controllers, and more human controllers. Any human you know might be a controller. There is no way to tell, unless you are an Andalite. I sympathized with Rachel, but I also understood Prince Jake's caution. No warrior can fight all of the time. Look, you guys, Prince Jake said. We hurt the Yeerks. It was a good job. But we also know that they have a replacement chondrona being set up. So don't assume they're weak. Besides, if they are weak, they sure haven't shown it. I expected to see Yeerks dying left and right, and former controllers walking free again. Hasn't happened. Somehow, they've maintained. We can't know what is going on with the Yeerks, Cassie pointed out. Just because we haven't seen them suffer doesn't mean they haven't. Okay, look, here we are again talking about Yeerks, Jake said impatiently. We have just come from a very, very unpleasant battle, and we came very close to ending up dead. And it's not the first time, so we are going to relax and be normal. We are going to the movie, and we are going to have fun. And no one, Rachel, is going to look for a fight. Don't you just love it when he gets all forceful like that? Marco said to Cassie. He's just so Schwarzenegger sometimes. Okay, Axe, Jake said. Time to get dressed. Prince Jake, I am already wearing this garment, I said, pointing to the thing that covered my body. Wearing. Ing. It is an amazing sensation, making sounds with your mouth. Actual words are formed by vibrating your throat and positioning your tongue. But some sounds are better than others. Ing is a wonderful sound to make. Don't call me Prince, Prince Jake said. Axe, you're dressed like an escapee from the Ice Capades, Marco said. You can't go out in public wearing tights and a spandex top, Rachel said. It's a major fashion don't. Here. She handed me a bag. In the bag were items of clothing. It took several minutes for me to dress successfully. There's a lot to remember, and every bit of clothing can only go one way. Socks go on the feet and not on the hands, for example. When I was done, they all stared at me. Even Tobias flew down to stare. Rachel, he looks like he's going to the country club to play polo, Marco said. I knew we shouldn't let you pick the clothes. He's like a bully magnet. Even I want to beat him up. It's a classic look, Rachel said angrily. Like you're Mr. Fashion? Person who dresses like Beavis? I think he looks cute, Cassie said. Well, that's the kiss of death, Tobias remarked from his perch in the tree above. It is? I asked. Just an expression, Axeman, Tobias said. You'll have fun. Axeman. That's what Tobias calls me sometimes. Come on, Axe, Prince Jake said, smiling. Let's do this. If anyone tries to beat you up, we'll protect you. Chapter 2. I did not understand the plot of that story, I said. We were in the movie theater. I was sitting. This involves bending your body and resting on the fat deposits halfway down the back of your body. That was a preview, Axe, Prince Jake said. It's just to give you an idea of what the whole movie will be like when it comes out. Yes, I see. Why is the screen flat and two-dimensional? Flat. Because that's how movies are. Ah. You want some popcorn? Marco asked. He held one of the open boxes he had obtained. He moved it close to me. Is it food? I asked. Well, sort of, Prince Jake said. But Axe, you know how you get around food, okay? So remember, don't get carried away. I watched Marco eat some of the popcorn. I did as he did. I stuck my large human fingers into the box. I removed a handful of the food and stuck it in my mouth. I chewed. The texture was rough and strange. And the flavor, it reminded me of a food called pizza. But there was just a hint of cigarette butts, which I also enjoy. Although Prince Jake had told me never to eat cigarette butts again. They are bad for you. I took another handful of the popcorn. I chewed it. Another handful. This is excellent, I cried. It tastes like it's about a week old, Marco said. What are these flavors? What are they called? I don't know. Salt? Grease? Salt, I said, savoring the very sound of the word. Salt and grease. Grease. Hey, hold it down, someone behind me said. This movie is starting. Salt. Salt. Grease. Grease. Axe, don't talk so loud, okay? Prince Jake suggested. Here, just take the box, Marco said. He handed me the box of popcorn. I quickly ate the rest of it. Not the box, Marco wailed. You don't eat the box. It tasted of salt and grease, I pointed out. Oh, man. Is it time to leave yet? Marco asked Prince Jake. Tell me it's time to leave. The movie began. It involved humans and non-humans in uniforms. It seemed they were in some sort of spacecraft. What type of ship is that? I asked. It looks somewhat like a Hajabran fighter. That's the Enterprise, Jake said. It's not real, it's just made up. Yes, I know, I said. I do know what a real interstellar spacecraft looks like. Marco and Prince Jake looked at each other. Both smiled. I quickly became bored by the plot of the movie. For one thing, there was one character who was clearly an Ongachic female, but in the movie, this creature was called a Cleon. It made no sense. However, by accident, I made a tremendous discovery. There was more popcorn. It was in boxes on the floor. I hadn't seen it in the darkness. There was a half-full box right by my feet. I quickly ate this new popcorn. Then I found something else beside it on the floor. It was a smaller box. Inside it were 3 small brown globules. I ate the globules. At that moment, it was as if the entire planet had stopped spinning. The taste, it was beyond description. Those brown globules were like nothing I had ever experienced. I felt my life had changed. I felt myself lifted up out of the world of everyday senses to some new level. More! I wanted more. I dropped to my knees and began to search. I crawled along the floor looking for more. It was easier crawling than walking. At least when I crawled, I had 4 legs. Also, the humans had coated the floor with sticky substances, which made it easier not to slip. I found no more boxes of globules. However, there was a small, twisted plastic envelope, and within that twisted plastic envelope, I discovered a chunk that smelled very similar to the globules. I stuck it in my mouth. Yes! It was the same flavor. The same miraculously heavenly flavor. And yet, there were differences, too. It was crunchier, and there were other flavors. The floor of the movie theater was filled with precious items. I crawled on. I had to squeeze past several seated humans who made loud noises as I passed. Hey, jerk, what are you doing? Get away from me, you freak! But I could not be distracted. I wanted more of the amazing brown food. More. Yes! Success! Another small box, and this one was half filled with brightly colored pellets. And yet, inside each pellet, more of that magic brown food. More! More! I wanted more! There, a younger human was holding an entire box of the brown globules. But I could not just take them. I must have permission first. I looked up from the floor at the human. Please give me your round brown globules? I asked. Globules. Yules. Mommy! What do you think you're doing? Another human cried. Mommy, he's trying to take my candy. I heard a more familiar voice. It was Marco. Where is he? Jake, where's Axe? I merely wish to enjoy the brown globules, I explained to the screaming child. Suddenly, I felt Prince Jake and Marco grabbing my arms. They lifted me up off of the floor and dragged me away. Globules! I cried. I snatched for the box the small human was holding. Globules! Chapter 3. There are many dangers for an Andalite and human morph. For one thing, there is the constant danger that you will fall off of your 2 legs. The slightest push and you can topple over. But worse by far is the danger of taste. Taste is a sense that can drive an Andalite mad, especially if it involves cinnamon buns or chocolate. From the Earth Diary of Aximili Escaruth Isil. By the time Marco and Prince Jake half dragged, half carried me out of the theater, I was calm again. We emerged into the brilliant sunlit area where vehicles are parked. "Okay, I think we have learned a lesson here," Prince Jake said. "No chocolate for Axe." "Chocolate? Chocolate?" I said, trying out the word. "The brown globules are called chocolate? What about the brightly colored pellets?" "Actually, the globules are called raisinets. The pellets are M&Ms. Are you under control now, Axe?" Prince Jake asked. I couldn't tell if he was angry or amused. "Yes," I said shakily. The flavor, it was just so wonderful." Cassie and Rachel emerged from the mall behind me. They watched curiously but kept their distance. As always, we were careful not to appear to be a group. The controllers are everywhere. Suddenly, I heard a thought-speak message. "Hey, you guys, was the movie that bad?" It was Tobias, on patrol far overhead. Of course, no one can answer him. Humans can use thought speech only when they're in morph. And since I was in a human body, I too was restricted to spoken language. "There's kind of a thing going on," Tobias said. "Just around the corner from you. Some guy staggering around and screaming at the top of his lungs. Cops are coming fast. I'm pretty sure I heard the word Yerk. He's heading your way." Just then, I began to hear it too. It was a human shouting in a loud, hoarse voice. "Over there," Marco said tersely. A man appeared. He seemed to be having difficulty standing up. He leaned against the outer wall of the store and staggered forward. Humans stared at him and moved away. "Listen to me! Listen to me!" he cried, looking around wildly. "They're here! They're here! They're everywhere! The Yerks are here!" My human body felt as if it had been jolted with electricity. Human bodies become very tense when surprised. I could see that Prince Jake and Marco were having the same reaction. I heard sirens wailing and drawing closer. "What do we do?" Marco asked. Prince Jake turned quickly back to Rachel and Cassie. He made a gesture with his hand. "Split up," he said. "They're here!" the man cried. "Ah!" He suddenly clapped both his hands over his left ear. "Got you! Got you! Die! Die!" "He's a controller," I said. "The Yerk in his head is dying." Jake met my gaze. "I know," he said. "Been there." I nodded. Jake had been made into a controller, though only for a brief time. We had been able to imprison him and starve the Yerk. Yerks live in the brains of other species, but every 3 days they must bathe in the Yerk pool to soak up Kandrona rays. Without Kandrona rays, they starve and die. Kandrona rays are beamed from a device called a Kandrona. Actually, it's a Kandrona wave/particle generator. The rays are beamed and then concentrated in the Yerk pool, where the Yerks feed. We had found and destroyed the Earth-based Kandrona. "Why is this happening now?" Rachel asked. "It's been weeks since we destroyed the Kandrona. Nothing ever seemed to happen, so why now?" I shrugged my shoulders, the way humans do to indicate ignorance. "I don't know, Rachel. Maybe the Yerks have reached their limit. It would have been a strain on their resources to shuttle controllers back and forth to the mother ship. Something maybe was broken?" "I didn't think things just broke for you space people," Marco said. "Thanks, Break," I said truthfully. "Break, ache. Well, whatever, scratch one Yerk," Marco said harshly. The man was screaming now and yanking at his ear. I could see the slimy tip of the dying Yerk as it slithered out of the man's head. "Can we help him?" It was Cassie. She and Rachel had defied Prince Jake's order to split up. They were with us now as we watched, horrified and transfixed. "We have to stay clear of this," Prince Jake said. "But maybe it's finally starting. It may be just this one guy, but there may be more. Finally! I expected this to start happening weeks ago. Yerk's dying, controller suddenly free and human again." He grinned. It was a savage look. "They'll die, and their hosts will be free. At first people will think they're nuts. But when they have 10, 20, 50 people all yelling about the Yerks, they won't be able to cover that up. Not for long." His voice had risen, become higher, and the words were coming out faster. He was obviously excited. Suddenly, an ambulance raced up, followed by 2 police cars, all with flashing lights and screaming sirens. "Ha!" Marco said. "I'm sure some of the cops are controllers, but they can't all be. Jake's right. The truth will get out. This is going to work. The truth is going to come out." "The replacement Kandrona is supposed to be here soon," Rachel pointed out. "We should have seen a lot more of this. The Yerks must have found a way to keep this from happening until now." Rachel is a true warrior. She does not underestimate her enemies. She was not ready to start talking about victory. But the others were all very happy. They believed that many Yerks would die, and the host would be free to tell the world the truth. They believed they had won the war. It made me sad for them, because I knew the truth. I knew how the Yerks operated. I almost told Prince Jake right then. He has a special reason to be hopeful. His brother Tom is a controller. There is nothing Prince Jake would want as much as his brother's freedom. But I knew this screaming controller with a dying Yerk in his head was just an oversight. Something had gone wrong with the Yerk's secret efforts. And I knew there would be no witnesses. I knew what would happen to this poor, shouting human. Jake was my prince now, my leader. But if I told him, it would lead to questions. And I could not answer questions, not without revealing the terrible truth behind the law of Sirao's kindness. Humans rushed from the ambulance and the police cars. Most, as Marco had said, were probably true normal humans. They grabbed the screaming man, who was still pulling the Yerk from his ear. "Oh, Lord, what is that? He's pulling his brains out," one policeman cried in horror. "The Yerks, they're here," the human screamed. "Die, die, get out of me and die. Freedom!" The police surrounded the man and hustled him into the ambulance. It was hard to see, unless you were expecting it, the moment when one of the policemen drew a small steel cylinder from his pocket and pressed it against the back of the man's neck. "I can't believe it," Cassie exulted. "Maybe it's really going to happen. Maybe people will realize the truth." "They have a real live Yerk now," Prince Jake said. "They can't cover this up forever." Again, I thought of telling them the truth, that the human was already gone, that the Yerk slug would crumble into dust, that no evidence would be left behind. But even though these humans were my friends, even though we fought side by side, there were secrets I could not tell them. I could not tell them how a race of parasitic slugs had come to be a danger to the entire galaxy. I could not tell them why we Andalites had to fight the Yerks, why we had no choice but to fight them, why we hated them so deeply. We have secrets, we Andalites, and the greatest secret of all is our own guilt. "This is great," Prince Jake said, smiling. "Yes," I said. "Great." Chapter 4. As the sun rose above the horizon the next morning, I stood by the small stream where I drink each day. Rough grasses mixed with fallen leaves and pine needles ran right down to the water. The sun was just barely visible through a gap in the forest trees. "From the water that gave birth to us," I said, and dipped my right forehoof into the water. It was the beginning of the morning ritual. "From the grass that feeds us," I said, and moved back to crush a small tuft of grass behind the same hoof. "For the freedom that unites us," I spread my arms wide. "We rise to the stars." I looked with all 4 of my eyes at the rising sun. I sighed. It was all pretty pointless. I'd never been a big believer in all the rituals. I mean, if you're going to be a warrior, you have to do it. And any heiress who gets caught rushing through the ritual is verbally reprimanded. But still, I was about 1 billion Earth miles away from my home world. It was hard to see why I should still be acting like a good little warrior cadet. I was all alone among aliens. Who cares if I perform the rituals? I bowed low. Freedom is my only cause. Duty to the people, my only guide. Obedience to my prince, my only glory. I hesitated. Tobias had landed in the tree above. The destruction of my enemies, my most solemn vow. I straightened up again, then assumed the fighting stance. I, Aximili Yesgaroth Isthil, Andalite warrior cadet, offer my life. With that, I drew my tail blade forward and pressed it against my own throat. Then I relaxed my tail. This was the part of the ritual that called for contemplation. You're supposed to think about the parts of the ritual and ask yourself if you were living up to all of it. The destruction of my enemies, my most solemn vow. That was the part that stayed in my thoughts. I had not destroyed my enemy. My enemy was terrible and powerful, and if I tried to destroy him, I would be the one killed. But that did not matter. What mattered was the enemy, the creature who had murdered my brother. Not in battle, but as he lay almost helpless. It was the humans who told me the rest of Alfangor's story. As the dome went crashing into Earth's sea, my brother's fighter was damaged by the Yeerks. He landed in an abandoned construction site. There were 5 human youths passing by. Jake, Cassie, Marco, Rachel, and Tobias. Alfangor was dying, and he knew that Earth was now defenseless. He told the 5 youths about the Yeerk threat, and then he did what he should not have done. He gave them the weapon to fight the Yeerks. He gave them the Andalite power to morph. Never in all of history has any non-Andalite been given the power to morph. It is against our major law, the law of Sirau's kindness. Only one other creature can morph, the Yeerk who invaded and took over a Andalite body. He is the only Andalite controller. There are hundreds of thousands of Hork-Bajir and Taxon and humans enslaved that way, but only one Andalite. Only one Yeerk has an Andalite body and the power to morph. The abomination, Visser 3. The humans told me of Alfangor's last battle, how Visser 3 had morphed into a huge, monstrous creature, how Alfangor had fought to the very end, lashing out helplessly, how Visser 3 had opened his jaws and... The humans don't know it, but if Alfangor had lived, he would have been in huge trouble. He would have been demoted at the very least. He would no longer have been a prince. Alfangor as the great hero would have been finished. The destruction of my enemies, my most solemn vow. I had faced Visser 3 more than once. He was still living. I had no excuse except that I was still just an heiress. If I were a full warrior, it would have been a total dishonor for me. Alfangor would have had the courage. If it had been me killed by a Visser 3, Alfangor would have gone right after him. But I guess I'm not Alfangor. Hey, Axeman, what's up? I am fine, Tobias, I said. Actually, I was not fine. Tobias being there reminded me that I had something planned for this morning, and I was nervous. Maybe that's why the morning ritual had not left me feeling calm, like it was supposed to. I was planning to do something very frightening. I was planning to go to school. Not to be too curious or anything, but what was that you were doing? I've seen you do it before. The morning ritual. It reminds a warrior to be humble and to serve the people. Sounds good, Tobias said. Yikes. Axe, don't step back. In fact, don't move at all. What is wrong? I asked. Don't you hear that? I listened. That rattling, hissing sound? I've heard that before. It's a rattlesnake right by your leg. They're poisonous, you know. Ah, no, I didn't know. I turned to face the snake. I saw it coiled in the leaves. What I did not see was when it struck. It was too fast. Too fast to see, let alone avoid. Luckily, the fangs hit my hoof. I whipped my tail forward and pressed the snake against the ground, holding it immobile. It squirmed and made a rattling sound with its tail. Better get rid of it, Tobias advised. But I had a different idea. I focused on the snake. I began to acquire it, absorbing the snake's DNA into my system. You want to be able to morph a rattlesnake? Tobias asked, sounding dubious. It's very fast, I said, and I have fewer earth morphs than the others. It may be useful someday. The snake had gone limp, the way animals always do when you acquire them. When I was done and the snake's DNA was within me, I used my tail to flip it away into some bushes. So, Tobias asked, are you still going ahead with your get-to-know-the-humans plan? Yes. I may be on this planet for a long time. I should be using this time to learn about humans, even though I think I may have behaved badly at the movie. Tobias laughed. He laughed for quite a while. Yeah, I heard about that. You just need to stay away from chocolate. I am not prepared for taste. The experience is very powerful. Perhaps I should not morph into a human anymore. Don't sweat it, Tobias said. But speaking of taste, you realize there's this big mystery about you. A big mystery? Yeah. No one wants to ask you because they think maybe it's rude. But everyone wants to know how you eat with no mouth. How I eat? I repeated, puzzled. Well, I have hooves, don't I? Okay, Tobias said. I'll mind my own business. We started moving through the woods. I ran at a good speed. I enjoyed leaping fallen logs and dodging through dense patches of thorny bushes. I was getting to know this forest well. As I ran and leaped, Tobias flew overhead. At times, he would rise through the canopy of trees and disappear from my sight. At other times, he would flit from tree to tree, silent and swift. In school, during xenobiology, we had a section on humans, I told Tobias. It mostly involved human television programs, news shows, entertainment, music. Music? You mean like MTV? You were watching music videos on the Andalite homeworld? I don't remember what they were. I didn't pay much attention to xenobiology. I wish I had now. A warrior is supposed to be a scientist and an artist as well as a fighter. But I didn't always enjoy that other stuff, so I didn't pay much attention. I suppose humans always pay attention in school? Absolutely, Tobias said. That's why I am such an expert on the War of 1812. A war? Tell me about it. I was kidding. I don't know anything about the War of 1812. We're just about there. Are you ready to start? We had reached a narrow spur of woods. Normally, I would not have dared to go this far because it was surrounded on three sides by human habitations. But Tobias was overhead, keeping his incredibly keen eyes open for any danger. Yes, I am ready. Jake and Cassie are coming across the field. Time for you to morph. Time to get human. Tobias, will you... you'll be alone today, while I'm with the others. What, like I can't get along without you, Axeman? I have places to go, things to do, feathers to preen, rodents to eat. Besides, Axe, Jake has already asked me to fly cover over the school while you're in there. I don't know why, but it made me feel better to think that Tobias would be in the sky above me all day. Sometimes I think Tobias and I could be true Shorm. A Shorm is a deep friend, someone you never lie to, someone who knows all your secrets. The word Shorm means tailblade. See, it's supposed to mean a person you would trust so much they could put your tailblade right up against your throat and you wouldn't even worry. Sometimes I think Tobias and I could be like that. We are both cut off from our own people. We are both alone. But if we were friends, I would have no secrets from Tobias. And even though he was a hawk in form, he was still a human. And I am an Andalite. And no matter how much I sometimes wished for a real friend, there had to be a wall between my people and the humans. Between me and the humans. Getting too close to any alien species is a mistake. We are taught that. We may protect them, defend them, care for them, but they can never be deep friends. Chapter 5. I have morphed some Andalite animals, and I have morphed many strange earth animals. But the animal I have morphed the most is the human animal. They are weak, slow, half-blind, and unstable. But no Andalite should laugh at them. Humans rule their planet. And as the human Rachel once said, Earth is a tough neighborhood. From the Earth Diary of Aximili Escaruth Isthel. I peered through the trees. I could see a wide, grassy field. On the far side of the field were several long, squat buildings. They were large yellow vehicles parked in front. Hundreds of young humans milled around outside the building. Prince Jake and Cassie had drawn close. "Hey, Axe," Prince Jake said. "How's it going?" "Very well, Prince Jake," I answered. You're not going to call me Prince Jake today, are you?" "When I am in human morph, I will behave as a human does," I assured him. "Well, better go ahead and morph," Cassie suggested. "I think we're clear, but I'll go and take a look," Tobias said. He flapped his wings and rose slowly into the sky. I concentrated on my human morph and began to make the change. "Still clear," I heard Tobias call down from above. "There are some kids about 200 feet away, but they can't see you." I morphed as quickly as I could, while being careful not to fall over as my third and fourth legs disappeared. At last, I stood on just 2 legs. It's both frightening and exciting. I mean, there you are, tottering back and forth with nothing to hold you up. Your feet can't grip, and they are too short to be much help in balancing. All you can do is, if you start to fall, is stand on one leg while you throw the second leg out to catch yourself. It's very unreliable. I don't know why humans evolved this way. They're the only species on this planet to walk around on just 2 legs without wings or a tail to hold them up. And I've certainly never heard of any other intelligent species trying to walk this way. "Hey, grab him," Prince Jake yelled as he began to lean back. "Got him," Cassie said. She helped support me as I finished the morph. Last of all, the mouth appeared, a horizontal split in my face. "Are you done?" Prince Jake asked me. "Yes, I am fully human." The sound delighted me. It's an amazing talent, this ability to make complex sounds. Human, 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 human. Axe, don't do that, okay?" Prince Jake said. "What? What?" "That, where you play with every sound like it's a new toy." "Yes, my prince, not a toy." Toy. Sorry. "This should be interesting," Cassie said, looking at Prince Jake. Tobias came swooping low and rested on a tree branch. "It's kind of sweet," he said. "Axe's first day of school." "His only day of school," Prince Jake said quickly. "This is just so he can learn how to be a more believable human. One time." Prince Jake held up a single finger, indicating number 1. "Yes, that is 1, I agreed. Now, let's go to school. I am looking forward to it. To it. "Remember, you're my cousin Philip from out of state," Jake said, while handing me a bag filled with garments. "Philip," I repeated confidently. "Philip. Lip. Philip. I like the sound the letter P makes." I got dressed to set off toward the squat building that was the schoolhouse. "Have fun," Tobias said. He sounded just a little wistful in my mind. It was a strange thing, I guess. I, an alien, could go to his school, but he could not. "I will," I called back over my shoulder. Unfortunately, bending that way made me fall over. It takes practice to walk on just 2 legs.